Hi, it's Pete Cohen and welcome to episode 147 of the Mi365 podcast series. Today's podcast is called Mental Toughness Training for Life. This is a subject that is very dear to my heart, having worked as a peak performance coach, someone who studied sports psychology, who worked with some of the finest athletes and teams that have ever graced this earth. But what I see more and more is how people need to develop toughness in their day-to-day life. So what I'm going to share with you is first, what is mental toughness? And I'm also then going to show you how you can become tough in your day-to-day life so you can deal with the obstacles that are coming your way, deal with the opposition, which can be outside and inside your own mind. And I'm going to show you how you can achieve your goals, dreams, and ambitions by becoming more mentally tough. So sit tight and get ready for another inspiring Mi365 podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 147 of the Mi365 podcast series. Today's podcast is called Mental Toughness Training for Life. Now you probably have heard of the term mental toughness. It's a term that was really developed for sport. You know, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. And it came out of the personal development movement, it came out of American sports psychology. But when I worked with athletes, it really became apparent to me how important it was for them not only to be tough in their sport, but also in their life. And the word toughness kind of seems to be quite a male type of word. Come on, toughen up, be a man. But really, it should apply to all of us, because for me, what toughness means is your ability to overcome adversity. And when you look at athletes, there's no athlete who has achieved great things without coming across some form of adversity, whether it was losing, which seems to be a massive part of sport. You can't win all the time. Injury, some sort of regret, some sort of things which happen to the athlete, which happens in their life. And it's often how they deal with it. And I met and worked with some of the most incredibly strong athletes. But what was really interesting was what happened to a lot of these guys when they actually retired. And one of them was quite well known, a guy called Jonathan Edwards, who was a triple jumper who won Olympic gold and had the world record. He was very strong, but when his career finished, he really struggled. He really struggled with his belief, everything. Because if you think about it, he had trained for his sport for years, all of his life pretty much. And then when his sport ended and he retired from that, it was like, well, now what was he going to do? Because he really didn't know what to do. Why am I telling you this? I think we need to see our lives as athletic events, as competition. But the thing that's different between us and athletes is athletes might only be competing for 90 minutes or for even a shorter period of time, and maybe only for a few years as long as their career lasts. But with us, our life lasts for a very long time. So I really want to help you understand the different areas that maybe you need to be tough in, but also to understand what real toughness is. I believe it's your ability to overcome things that are challenging. So my first point to all of you is, look, what would happen if you were going to start to see your life as a competition? And I don't mean competing against other people. That's a recipe for success. In fact, not a recipe for success. That's a recipe for failure, if you like, but consistent failure. So let me give you an example. If you're looking to compete against other people all the time, then you're comparing yourself to them. There's nothing wrong with looking at what other people are doing, but if you compare yourself to others, you're in trouble. An example of this is an athlete called Roger Black, who was an athlete who I worked with, who was a 400-meter runner. And he was competing in Olympic Games, running against Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson at that time was probably the best athlete in the world. 200 meters, 400 meters, gold medalist, Olympic champion, world champion. And he kind of knew that he wasn't able to beat him. But what he did really focus on was himself and looking at what was going on inside. And he did get a silver medal. You see, what we have to do in life, I believe, is we do have to get tough. And we do have to look inside and realize what is actually going on. Now, if you're like most people, you probably don't have many goals that are driving you forwards. Athletes do. They know what's coming. They have a schedule. This competition is happening then, so they train for that. And we are all teleological. What does that mean? It means we're all goal-orientated. And where I've seen so many people suffer in the world today is they don't have compelling goals that they're going after. And just going back to the comparing yourself to others, so many people, when they try things, they don't put everything into it because maybe they've failed in the past and they're frightened they're going to fail again, but also they don't want to look bad in front of other people. They don't want other people to see that they have failed. Can you not see that in life, all the things that you're probably good at is stuff that you trained to do and you probably failed and you learn, just like learning to walk. You didn't just give up. Otherwise, we'd all be on the floor sucking fluff. How did you learn to drive? Probably by stalling. How we learn in life, and this is where we all need to really get our head around, what does mental toughness really mean? It means your ability to compare yourself to yourself, to set yourself some goals that when you think about those goals, you think, okay, this is going to challenge me. Because whether you're an athlete in sport or an athlete in life, which you actually are, how are you doing? How are you performing? See, the three areas in life that we're all performing in pretty much is our health. How are you performing in the competition around your health? Now, again, as a coach, it's like, okay, guys, come on in. I used to be a PE teacher. I don't really need that to be a coach today, but I thought it would just, come in, everyone. Okay, as your coach, what does a coach do? Ask questions. Let's ask a couple of questions. Hey, how are you performing in these different areas? I don't know why I've gone into an American accent, but anyway, how are you performing in the area of your health? How is your health? Are you happy with your health? How is your energy? How's your flexibility? How's your concentration and focus, which all has to do with health? See, if you started to compete in that area so you could get better, this is the key thing here, getting better. Why? Because that is what you were put on this earth to do, to get better. The only reason you're here today is because your forefathers must have gotten better at something, at surviving, at making money, at building businesses, whatever, to create this life for you. In fact, today, there's a whole load of people who don't really have to get better at anything, and that's the point I want to talk about in a moment. So, the three areas, your health. Could you get better in that area? Could you start to see that every day you're competing in the area of your health to get healthier? Are there little things that you can do? And this, again, is where process and rituals come into place. Because when you look at great athletes, they all have all these little things done. They don't leave anything to chance. They leave no stone unturned. So that's one area. The second area is your family and your friends. How are you competing there? I mean, maybe competing sounds like the wrong. How are you performing? Maybe is a better word. How's it going? Are there any areas that you could improve upon? I know there's a massive area I can improve on. I can be a better son to my mum. I can be a better friend to my friends. I can be a better husband to my wife. I could be a much better husband to my wife. I'm really in competition with that every single day. I'm performing. And I'm very lucky to have such a great wife who allows me to make mistakes and allows me to get better every day. She says, well, you know, this is a new day. Forget what happened yesterday. Let's go again. And I love that attitude. And then the third area is your work and your service. How are you performing there? These are the three big areas that whether you like it or not, you are performing. How are you getting on? And this is where really, really key points. Some of you maybe have heard me talk about this before, but the reason you exist is to get better. Every single cell in your body wants to get better. It's just a law of nature. Everything exists. So if you cut yourself or you're unwell, your body is trying to heal itself. Can you perform better to let yourself grow more? And this leads me on to another very key area about mental toughness is we need to train hard. if you work with an athlete, it's very challenging, and I've been a part of this with many great athletes, is the pushing almost to the edge of what they're capable of for them to find out and expand and to grow. Now, we have to be careful with that because we don't want anyone to get injured, but your growth happens through getting uncomfortable. But most of us don't like anything uncomfortable because that's the world we're living in today. We live in a world where everyone's doing what they really want rather than addressing what they need to do. And you need to get better, and you need to leave this world in a better place so you leave a legacy. Maybe I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to at least one of you who goes, yeah, Pete, you know what, you're right. It's time for me to look at my life as an athlete, and you need to train hard. But I tell you what, you need to recover harder. Let me say that again. You need to train hard, but you need to recover harder. What do I mean by that? We live in a world where there's so much information, we never really switch off. And we recover when we switch off. We recover by solitude. We recover by things like meditation or practicing mindfulness. We recover by good quality sleep. We recover by getting involved in activities which calm us down. Life is a balancing act. And this is where you might really want to see the competitive side or the performing side or getting this right, because we talk about this work-life balance. That's just nonsense. You don't ever achieve it. It's something you're always looking to get right. And sometimes if you can just get some rituals in place, you'll find that your life stays much more centered. So you're balancing. Now, I really hope this makes sense. And as we start to wrap up this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You know, does this make sense? We have people listening to this podcast all over the world. We have people who listening to this on Spotify, listening to it on iTunes, watching it on our website, wherever you're listening to it. Let us know. Make a comment if it's on iTunes. Tell us what are you taking away from this. But the biggest takeaway for me personally, as we start to summarize this, is where are you going? You see, athletes know where they're going. They know that they're performing to be the best that they can be. They have a future identity. And this is why I see so many people struggling. They're not aware of their future identity. The person they want to become doesn't inspire them because they don't think about it. If you can start to create that identity and see yourself in the way that you want to be with those three areas. What are those three areas? Do you remember? Those three areas: your health and well-being, your family, and your work and service. If you build an identity of the person that you want to be, this is the biggest trick for all of you. Here we go. Every time you behave like that person, every single time you behave like that person, you set your standards, you do what you said you were going to do, you have to say that, you have to say this: that's like me. To reinforce the person that you're becoming. If you don't, you just seem to go around in circles, and we go back to default settings, we go back into old ways of thinking. Look, we have this power, our futures are unwritten, and you have this ability to develop toughness. What's your biggest takeaway from this podcast here today? What are you going to do immediately? Are you going to get tough? Do you now know what toughness is? It's your ability to deal with the obstacles that are coming your way. You are here for one reason, to get better. Think about those three areas. Take some action based on the back of what I've shared with you. If you want to find out more about what we do, just check it out. mi365.me/elite, mi365.me/elite, and see the difference that we're making to people's lives. I believe everyone needs coaching. Everyone needs someone to help them make sense of what is going on in the world and help them to move forwards in a direction where they're just getting better. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's get tough. We'll see you next time for another Mi365 podcast.